Good evening. At least it's evening here in Kentucky. It's almost midnight, so it's Easter Eve, I guess you could say. We're 5 minutes away from Resurrection Sunday, so happy Resurrection Sunday for all of you. And tonight I thought I would do sort of an impromptu video. I haven't done one on YouTube for a while, and I thought, man, I gotta get going because the algorithm on YouTube doesn't like a lot of empty space, no videos. So I got to get going and get busy and make some more videos. But tonight's topic is going to just kind of touch on some of the basics of what types of things do kids need. If you've got a young artist in your house and they want to do more than just draw on paper or, the traditional type materials, if they want to kind of enter into the digital world, what does a child need, and what kind of expenses and things are there? So I thought I would touch on that a little bit, and rather than you watching my head talk about this, which is kind of boring, and I'll save you the having to look at me. I'll start inking on a drawing, something that I'm working on for Reasons for Hope. This is something I've been doing in my off time. So it's connected with a project that I'm doing and that I currently work on. And so I thought I would kind of entertain you that way while I'm off the top of my head mostly talking about what types of things do kids need to do digital art. And so that's a really good question. I do a few how to draw type series for Reasons for Hope, and most of the kids that follow along, I would imagine, have paper and pencils and markers and stuff in front of them, and so the mom that asked me the question said, hey, my child loves to draw these drawings along with you, but wants to do them more like you're doing. So how can they do that? Well, what I'm working on here is I've got a Wacom digital graphics tablet in front of me, which these things are like, pretty expensive, and that line doesn't look black to me. It is. I don't know what's going on here. Anyway, this tablet that I'm working on right now is very expensive, and you're pretty much just, unless you're well off and don't mind spending lots of money on your children, the Cintiq Wacom tablets are probably out of the reach of most people, especially if you're just exploring, does my child want to be an artist, or maybe they just kind of like to draw stuff on the side. So the graphics tablet that I'm working on is really, I think, an unrealistic type of thing. But there are other options that I'll talk about in a little bit. But again, I just want to tell you what I'm doing right now. And then the program that I'm using is Adobe Photoshop, and that's another expensive type of thing. They do have a subscription model, and I'm not a fan of the subscription model, because instead of owning the program, you have to keep paying into it. There's some pluses and minuses to that. But so Adobe Photoshop is a very professional program, high end. And so that's, again, probably not realistic. Although, I think they do have a student rate. So that's something to keep in mind. And for a young person, learning a program like Photoshop would be beneficial, especially if they're going to get into the field later on. That experience and knowing that type of program from a young age would be beneficial. So just kind of throw that out there. But again, just to have a young child kind of working on something, that's a bit unrealistic too. But there are other programs that I would suggest and recommend. One thing that's helpful to know in trying to answer some of these questions is, what kind of computer do you have at home, if that's the avenue that that you're going to go down, because there's not only the computer route, there are devices that that can be used, and I have an Apple iPad. Mine is the Pro version, and so again, a little higher end, expensive type of thing. But the good news in that is that a number of years ago, Apple came out with their stylus, the Apple Pencil. And I was super happy about that, because to be able to draw on something on a screen was not an easy thing, or something that most people could do for a long time. And then computer companies started coming out with tablets and things that you could use styluses on, so it became to be more popular. But Apple seemed to be dragging their feet on making that possible for their iPads. I think Steve Jobs had a thing against using styluses, and so it took a little while for them to get there, even after he died. So, but there are tablets that you can use styluses with, and so there's applications with those. I only know the Apple side of things, and so if you've got an Android tablet or something, then I'll have to do a bit of research on some of that sort of stuff. But if you already own an iPad or a tablet of some sort, then you're pretty close. I would ask that you kind of do the little bit of research and see if there's a stylus that's available for that particular piece of equipment. And then as far as the Apple products go, the newer iPads are the ones that you can use the Apple Pencil with. The Apple Pencil's not inexpensive either. I believe, well, there's 2 generations of them. And like I said, I got to do a bit more of my research too. I only know the newer one. I have an iPad Pro 12-inch, and I think it's the 3rd generation, so it's not the newest one, but it's the second. It's the next one down. And so I've got a number of different apps that I use with that. But that stylus is the 2nd generation stylus. So there's two different generations of stylus that Apple has. And I can't tell you that the first stylus is compatible with the non-Apple non-Apple iPad Pro iPads. I think it's only the 2nd generation. Again, I got to do my research on that. But I just wanted to start this video tonight to kind of get the conversation going. And if there's any questions that you have that you want me to look into, to research, I want to do a series of videos kind of giving parents that answers to that question more complete. And there's some things I'll be able to answer from experience because of the products that I do own and some of the apps and things that I've used. And then there's some of them I'll have to kind of do my research and say, okay, this is what I've heard and this is what I've found. And so that sort of thing. So it can be a little bit of an expense depending upon what you don't have. Now, if you're going to do it from the computer side of things, it probably will be a little bit more expensive, just because some of the apps for the iPad are stunningly inexpensive. There's free ones, and then there's ones that even professional people use, and I think they're less than $10, which is amazing, or under $20 for sure. But yeah, some of those apps are really great, and you can do some pretty nice things with them. And but even on the computer side of things, if you want to do something on the computer, there's free programs. And I'll tell you about one of them tonight. I have it installed on my computer right now, and I look at it every once in a while. I have Photoshop, so I don't necessarily have to go there. But there's a free, it's a free Photoshop-like program, and it's called GIMP, G-I-M-P. And so go to their website. Just look it up on a browser, GIMP, G-I-M-P. And this program is, I think it's open source, and it's free to download. It's a trustworthy program, and it's a lot like Photoshop. It's not exactly the same, but it has a lot of the same tools. And so a young student, you could probably find some instructional videos on YouTube and get yourself up and running, and then that would be a start. Now the other obstacle there is that if you've got a computer, again, it doesn't matter, Mac or PC, and you get that program downloaded, then the other problem is, well, how does the young artist draw on the computer? And a mouse is not the answer. I mean, I've seen artists, I actually even know of an artist that uses a mouse to produce his artwork, but he works mostly with basic shapes like circles and squares and straight lines and curves and stuff. And so those are things that he can easily produce with a mouse. I'm kind of blown away that this artist, who's very reputable artist, has chosen to just use a mouse. But he does, and it works for him, but that's probably not going to work for most people. So so you'd have to get something like a drawing tablet, a graphics tablet. And there are a few different companies out there that make such a thing. I am heavily biased towards a company called Wacom, W-A-C-O-M. And I'll be including some more information on them in another video. But I started using Wacom tablets years ago. And the first products that I used were not the Cintiqs that they have today. They didn't have those yet then. And it was more of a sort of a mouse pad sort of a thing with a cord sticking out of it, and then you drew on that with a pen. And And so you used it like a mouse in the sense that you looked at your computer screen, but your hand was on another surface, manipulating the cursor or whatever around on the screen while you're looking at the screen, but your hand is not on the screen, it's on something else. And so I learned how to produce artwork with that back in the the mid to late 90s. So that's been around for quite a while, and their products have gotten better and more advanced, and now they've got graphics tablets like the one that I'm using right now, where my hand is actually drawing on the screen, and I personally love that. Not all artists do. I know that some they prefer the graphics tablets, like I was just talking about, and they don't mind the disconnect between your hand being somewhere else, like you're using a mouse, and the cursor doing its thing on the screen. So I know some artists that do very well. They draw that way very well, and I never quite could draw real well on that sort of a computer configuration. I much prefer the Cintiqs where your hand is actually on the screen. So I guess that's another thing to kind of figure out what your child would do better with. Although children can learn and adapt very well to things being at a young age like that. So, but that's a consideration. Just maybe there would be different learning dynamics that your child has versus other children. And so drawing on an iPad might be better for a particular child versus using a Wacom tablet that you kind of use like that mouse type situation. And see, personally, I draw better on paper, and I get a little lost on the computer. There's too many options for me to zoom in and zoom out and all that stuff. It's just keep it simple. Paper on pen, paper, pencil on paper. That traditional stuff works better for drawing. Now, painting and that sort of stuff, even inking, that's fine on the computer for me. But not all digital things necessarily are improvements, and it's just a matter of personal preference and taste, and whatever a particular artist's bent are or is for a particular way of working. Digital art does have advantages to it in that there's not a lot of mess, and there's not a lot of tools to store and such. It's all on your computer. One thing that bugs me is that I think a lot of people think, well, it's digital, so it must go really fast. Push a button and make it happen type of stuff. And the computer is just the tool. Now, it's got some fancy bells and whistles on it, but your child needs to learn how to use those tools like they learn how to use a pencil or a watercolor brush or oil brush or whatever it is. Those principles of drawing and artwork are important, and the computer does not do the artwork for them. That's something that I come across every once in a while too, is that when a parent is asking, well, what kind of programs and such should I get for my child that wants to do artwork? It's almost as if the art education part kind of goes to the background, and it's all about the tools. And it's the tools are important, but the knowledge on how to use them is more important, because if your computer shuts down and you're without your computer, can you still do the artwork? Are you lost without your computer? So you've got to consider those types of things. Filters and all that fancy bells and whistles type stuff on computers, those are nice things. Those are tools. But if those become crutches and you can't do artwork without them, then there's something not right about what you're doing or learning. I've seen people like that before, that they just couldn't get by without all the like effects type of stuff, and they couldn't do the artwork. So that's a caution to watch out for, is filters and the special effects whiz bang type stuff are not something that you should have to rely on and depend on. So, oop, I got that arm in the back there. So, hey, good evening, Don. Yeah, good. I'm glad that some of this is useful, at least as I'm chatting here off the top of my head. If you have any specific questions, I'll try to answer them. Now, why isn't that? Oh, okay. All the bells and whistles that make artwork on a computer work well. Sometimes you run up against, like, why isn't my brush painting on the computer? And then you realize, oh, you had that layer locked. One thing I would say about if your child wants to draw along with me on one of my drawing features, Draw It and Know It, or my live drawing on Friday at 2:30 Eastern, there's a few things that they would need to know. So I'll go over these things again later, but the computer program or app that they would use, they would need to just know a few basic things. So you wouldn't really have to go deep into knowing the program, and any child that's got just a handle on a few of the basic things would do fine, just fine with some of the simple stuff that I do. And so using the different pencils and brushes that a program has would be part of that. And then so switching back and forth to those, use of color, finding the color palettes and being able to pick different colors is another ability that they would need to have. And that's pretty basic stuff. Probably the biggest thing that that they would need to learn if they were going to follow along with me and kind of do what I do is learn how to use layers. And so whatever app or program that you have, GIMP does have layers, just like Photoshop. And learn how to use layers. And layers can kind of be a little, I don't know, a little confusing at first, maybe to some people. But once you get that idea down, that'll serve you well. So I would encourage the child or parent to seek out some videos on YouTube, or I'll probably do some demonstrations down the road here too. So I'll let you know how to do that. But like the drawing that I'm on right now, the colors that I am putting on here right now might look like everything's on one layer. Like this is a sheet of paper and I'm drawing in a coloring book type of thing. But what's actually happening here is that I have a document open and it's got many, many layers. If you can see over, oh, you probably can't see them. This is the way I have my this program that I'm streaming with. But there's many layers that I have open here. I have an ink layer that I just made my inks on. So if I turn that off, my drawing is going to look really funny because you're just going to see the colors and the sketch underneath. But there's the ink layer that I turned off. So if I turn that back on and then I turn off the Wacom tablet color layer, I can turn that on and off. So those are layers that are underneath the inks that I have. And then if I turn all these off, then there's the sketch that I started out with. I can turn that off and you got a blank sheet of paper. So those are the pieces and parts. If you get that layer thing down, then the world is just kind of open up to you as far as like digital artwork. And it's not super hard to understand. It just takes a little bit of experimenting and kind of fooling around, maybe watching some videos. I remember when I first started using Photoshop, this was back in probably the late 90s, a long time ago. Photoshop's really grown and you can do a ton more with it now than you could back then. But even back then, it was really intimidating. And I just started doing a few simple things. And then I got comfortable with those few simple things, and then I started doing a few more things. And so you just kind of pick up and do more and more and more, and then after a while you've got a handle on a bigger range of stuff. So whatever apps or programs that you end up getting, just start doing simple little things, and don't become so overwhelmed with all the stuff that a particular program can do. So I hope that some of the things I've been kind of rambling on here, but some of the things that I've talked about tonight have been helpful to you. So we're going to talk about computers, and we'll talk about the Wacom tablet devices. There are other companies that make similar things, but I'm going to more stick to Wacom tablets. And then if you don't want to do it on the computer, you want to do digital artwork on the tablets, then I'll also speak from an Apple point of view. But there are other tablets that use styluses and such, so you can get to know them as well. But I'll do some research, and we'll come out with some videos in the days ahead. If you have any questions, you can check out my website, danlietha.com. And send me an email, send me a message, or maybe you can put a comment on this video and ask me some questions, and I can kind of prepare myself for answering those things that you want to know. So Don says, in fact, let me practice using so let's see. Don says, my daughter started old school with pencils, brushes, etc. Now she has an iPad and a pencil she just got. So that's great. There are a ton of apps out there that, like I said, either they're free, which there are a bunch of those, or they're super inexpensive. I can't think of right now of any really expensive art app on the iPad that's going to set you back any great amount. They're probably $5-10 at the most, and there's tons of videos online on how to use them. I'll just give you one name right now. Procreate is a video or an app that a lot of artists use, and you can do a ton with it, and it's just a few bucks. So look that one up for the iPad. So, but this drawing that I just did tonight is something that I'm working on with Reasons for Hope, and it has something to do with the videos that I produce right now, the Draw It and Know It and such, that I'm working on. So you might want to check some of those out on the Reasons for Hope YouTube channel, and then try to make a guess as to what you think this might be used for, because I have a use for this, and I think it's going to be really cool when I get it done and worked on and formulated. So all the pieces and parts need to come together, and you're going to see something that I hope is impressive. But this is a start. It's a little cartoon me at the drawing board, and something's going to happen here. So let me know what you think of what I have in mind with this little drawing. So let's see. Don says, should she just get free or cheaper apps for practice? Well, I guess that's kind of up to you. There are a lot of free ones. It really doesn't hurt to get some of the free ones. You can do your research on some of what those are. And then the only thing is that apps operate a little bit differently. So you have to learn a little bit. So you might invest some time into learning a particular app, and then you find out, oh, I don't care for that one, then move over to another one. Where like if you pay a little bit for Procreate, that one, like I said, professional artists actually use that one, and it doesn't cost that much. And then any time that you would invest in learning how to use Procreate, you'd probably stick with it down the road and learn how to use it. But if you want to get some simple kiddie drawing apps, those are fine, and they're fun to use, and none of them are super hard to figure out. There are some ins and outs to some of them, but anyway, yeah, get a few free ones and have her experiment with the free ones and see what she thinks. So that's all I have for tonight. Watch for some other videos in the future. If you like what you see, tell other people, subscribe, like and comment. And thanks for watching, and have a great Easter weekend, and celebrate. He is risen. He is risen indeed.